Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Hello. I'm going to mute mics as people add, but people can add. It looks like everything's working. That's good. Hi, I'm Daniel Estrada. I'm the instructor for engineering ethics. Welcome to the online hangout. This is the first time I've done this, so hopefully it goes smoothly. So my plan right now is to go through some of the syllabus and talk about how the class works, make sure this online hangout is working well. I'm glad people are joining in. Good. So here, if you have questions, please just ask.
Yeah, we're good.
Good. One thing I guess before we get started is that there's a maximum of 10 people that can join a hangout at any one time. So I guess I'd like to leave the video chat people if you have a question, especially as it gets full. But right now it's not a big deal. But just keep that in mind in the future. Okay. So. Yeah, so let's talk about engineering ethics. Let's look at the syllabus. Here we go. Here's the syllabus. All right, so good. So the syllabus. All right, so I'm Dan Estrada. Here's my email address. I do a live lecture of this class on Tuesdays and Fridays in Coop Hall 207. That'll be at 4 o'clock tonight. You can come by and visit a live lecture too. And then the online section, the online hangout is going to be today, Tuesday from 2:30 to 3:30. I will have office hours on Mondays and Thursdays from 2:30 to 3:30, and you can come in and talk to me. My office hours, I actually have a room now. My room is 420 in the Humanities building. Good. Everything's good. Let me look at chat. If people have questions and want to leave them in chat also, there's a video chat here. On the side, and you can also leave them in the event page for the Hangout, which a lot of people have already been talking on. Good. Okay. So let's go back to this. Okay, so engineering ethics. I want to give you an introduction to engineering ethics in a little bit, but right now I want to just go over the mechanics of the course. Yeah, let me go over them. Oops, sorry. Too many things happening. There we are. Okay, so back to the syllabus. So I'll go over what the course entails in particular, but right now I just want to go over the mechanics of the course. The really big thing for the course is to make sure you get the textbook as soon as possible. I think in the first week there's nothing with the textbook, but in the second, there's some assignments that refer to the textbook, but you don't need the textbook for anything until the second week. So you have a little bit of time. This book should be at the bookstore. It's also on Amazon. I have a link to Amazon. You can get a used copy. I haven't found an online version of the 4th edition. It's important that you have the 4th edition because some of our quizzes will draw from that text. Okay, so get the textbook as soon as you can. So here's the course. The course is 15 weeks, and every week there's 3 assignments to complete. I will give you a lecture with reading material, and with that reading material you need to complete a quiz, and you need to post in the discussion forum. All of this is on Moodle. Let me just go to Moodle. So if you go to Moodle, you have class show up. There's 4 different sections in this class. Some students have been a little bit confused like this by this. If you scroll down, here's lesson 1. And at the bottom of lesson 1 will be the material, and it says there's an advanced forum here. There's also a quiz. But how do you get to the quiz? There's a couple of different ways you can do this. One way you can do this is by clicking on lesson 1. If you click on lesson 1, then it takes you to that lesson 1 page. Specifically, and if you scroll down to the very bottom of this, here's the discussion 1 forum. There's no quiz for discussion 1. You can click on the forum. This is what the forum looks like. You can get to the same forum with the navigation bar here on the left. This gives you all the different lessons. And for each lesson, there's usually a discussion and a quiz. And so you can go to the different assignments all the way through lesson 15. I think it should be all set up. Yeah, here's the discussion forum for lesson 15. The other way to get to the activities is on this top menu bar. Each one of the lessons has a discussion or a quiz. Good. Let me just check chat to make sure everything's okay. If anyone has any questions on using Moodle. All right. Okay, so there's a lecture, there's a quiz, and a discussion forum for every lesson, for almost every lesson. The lectures are where I sort of explain the themes for that lesson and introduce the material. And typically a lesson lecture will be about, this one's actually long for a lesson lecture because it's the first one, but it'll usually be something like this, where I give a little bit of context for each one of the reading assignments in that lesson. I usually have a lot of reading assignments, and you're not required to read all of the assignments. I usually distinguish between the required readings and the optional readings. The big distinction here is that the required readings will appear on the quiz, so there might be quiz questions about each one of these, and there won't be any quiz questions about anything in the optional readings. So your assignment is to look over the lecture, the introductory lecture, and all this material, and to peruse it. You're not required to master this material. You're not required to know every little detail. You're only required to have read through the material enough to take the quiz, and the quiz will usually consist of a few short multiple choice questions. I'll just give you a peek at the lesson 2 quiz, preview quiz. So yeah, so here's quiz questions, multiple choice. You answer these 5 quiz questions, and you get your quiz grade. And it's usually just drawn directly from the textbook. If you've read the text, if you've read the material, then you shouldn't have too much problem with the quiz. So in addition to the quiz, there's also a discussion forum. And this is where the majority of your assignments will be posted. Most of your assignments are writing assignments. So you have a quiz. Quizzes are only 20% of your grade. The majority of your grade comes from the discussion forums. Discussion forums count for 60% of your overall grade. In the discussion forums, you have 2 assignments. One is you have to write a post of at least 350 words. The other is you have to write some replies of at least 75 words, or about a paragraph. Post 350 words is about a page of double-spaced typing. So every week, for every lesson, you're required to write 1 page response and then respond to other students in the class with paragraphs, and you need to do 3 replies. 1 post, 3 replies. Let me show you the grading scale here. Yeah, so for every lesson is worth 80 points, 20 points come from the quiz, 60 points come from the discussion. That's 30 points for your post and 30 points for replies, where replies are 10 points each. So most of your grade is in the discussion, and a significant chunk of your grade is your posting assignment every week. It's a 1-page response. For this response, you're not required to write on any particular topic. If we go back to our lesson, I will usually introduce some readings and ask some questions. You can respond to these questions if you'd like, but you're not required to at all. These questions are to help stimulate your thinking. Your assignment is to write 1 page on any issue related to that lesson and that material that interests you enough to write for a page. You don't have to say anything in particular, but you have to be talking about the material. The deeper and more engaged you get in the material, the better your grades will be on the post. Again, you don't have any specific writing assignment. Your job is to read through the material enough to answer the quiz and to find something that you're interested in writing about, and then to write a page about it, and then to talk with your peers with replies. And that's the class. We have 15 weeks of this. Every week there'll be a quiz, post, and 3 replies. These are due every week on Friday at midnight. So let me go to the late policy here. Yeah. Posts, quizzes, and replies are due on Moodle. All the due dates are already listed. And they're due on Friday at midnight, so that Saturday at 12 o'clock in the morning counts as late. Of course, you can complete it any time before Friday at midnight. I hope you aren't spending your Friday nights working on engineering ethics. But you can complete it at your own pace up until that Friday. I do have a very strict late policy. So after the due date, posts and replies are worth 50%. So it's due on Friday at midnight. If you turn it in Saturday at 1 a.m., then it's late and it counts for 50%. The purpose of this late policy is to keep people engaged at the same material at the same time, so you're keeping up with the class. So this is a pretty strict policy, 50% after the due date for 1 week, and then after 2 weeks, no late work is accepted. Again, this is designed so that everyone's doing the same work at the same time, so that the class is staying synchronized. It's really important for the discussions to be fruitful, that everyone's on the same page. Staying on top of the assignments is your primary obligation for this class, so it's important that you do these assignments, and that's why the late policy is pretty strict. The work itself should be fairly easy. If you looked over the material, it shouldn't be too demanding in terms of time or cognitive effort, as long as you're doing the work. So let me go ahead and stop right here and see if there's any questions or any comments, any concerns. Let me put my camera back on. Does anyone have any questions? Issues?
It's muted.
Can anybody else not use chat? Because I've got the button clicked and I can't even type in the box.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just type in the box.
Right.
None works.
Yeah, it works. Can you guys
On the
hear me?
left side, there's a button that says chat. You can click on it, and at the very bottom, there's a little box that says enter chat message or link here. I'm clicking on it, and I'm typing letters, and no letters show up.
It sounds like your computer's broken.
Yeah.
I guess refresh, maybe, that might help.
Actually, you're right. My computer's broken. Oh crap! I'll be right back.
Yeah. Good work. I'm glad we got that sorted out for you.
Any question?
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
So say like I can't get onto the live chat when it starts. You can watch it later on and still get credit for it.
Yeah, that's right. In the discussion forum, I will post a live chat thread for that week, and I'll have a link to this chat where you guys are on right now, and I'll also have a link to the sign-in sheet. And the only thing you really need is to fill out that sign-in sheet with the word of the day, and that'll be the
cookie.
Password. I'll change that word every day.
Yeah.
And as long as you sign in on that sign-in sheet before midnight tonight, so I know, especially for online students, not everyone has this time slot available. If you would like to meet with me some other time, you can meet in my office hours, and I'd be happy to do a video chat with you privately to talk about grades or something. Please don't talk about grades in the open online chat, because it's going to be posted on YouTube. So if you want to talk to me privately and use this as office hours, we can do that some other time. But this is really for me to sort of introduce the lesson and talk about anything with the people that show up. And then I'll archive this, and people can watch it later. And in fact, I encourage you to watch it later. How I'm encouraging you to watch it later is with this word of the day. So as long as you watch this video sometime before midnight tonight, and fill in the sign in on the sign-in sheet, then you'll get the attendance credit for today. You don't have to be in the forum. You don't have to be on video chat. Although you're welcome to be. I encourage you to be. It makes me look less weird when there's other people talking.
I got one question.
Yeah.
You said that the required materials that you give it to us. So what are we supposed to do with that? Are we supposed to only read that, or are we also supposed to read the optional reading that you give us?
So you can read as much or as little as you want. Your minimum requirements are to read enough to pass the quiz, and usually that means having the documents open while you're taking the quiz. There's no time limit on the quiz, so it's just however you can answer those. And then to pick some other bit of material that you want to write on. And I'm offering a lot of material. Hopefully it's not overwhelming. The point of the material is so that you do find something that you want to write on.
So basically, we find like one reading out of the 4, and then you write 350 words onto it on the forum, right?
Yeah, that would be perfectly fine. That would meet the basic requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
But can you go above 350 words if possible, or it'll be loss of points?
Yeah, no, you can go above 350 words. In fact, I encourage you to go above 350 words. And there's a little trick. So if you've watched this far in the video, you'll know this trick now, because I'm going to tell you how the grading scale works.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the trick. The minimum requirements that I've discussed is the minimum requirements to get a B in the class. And the way that I've structured the class is that if you meet the minimum requirements, it's very easy to get a B. It's actually fairly difficult in this class to get an A, and you have to go significantly beyond the minimum requirements. So the minimum requirements is 350 words, but the over 450 words, that's where you're getting into the A range of a post. So if you meet the minimum requirements, which means 350 words on time, talks about some of the sources, then you get a B grade, posted worth 30 points, so 80% of 30 points is 24. So if you're getting between 24 and 26 points, you earned a B. You've met the minimum requirements, and as long as you meet the minimum requirements, you're going to get a B in the class.
Okay.
If you want an A in the class, you're going to have to do a little bit more, and in particular, this is where those additional resources come in. So talk about it more deeply, get engaged more deeply.
You can also use the resource outside the world. Like, for example, you give us 4. We can also dig our own resources and put some ideas into the equation, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So what was I about to say? Okay, there's 4 readings the four readings that like particular required readings that we have. We go above it, we get good scores. But do we get? You said the B is the minimum requirement. Like, what else do you need to get an A? Like, do you need the APA formats, APA citations, and everything inside the paper to for a credible source?
Yeah, that's right. So let me just pull up the syllabus again. So I have at the bottom of the syllabus the grading scale.
Okay.
So this is the trick. If you meet the minimum requirements, you get 80%. The default grade is not 100%. The default grade is 80%, and then you can improve that grade by engaging with the material, going beyond the material provided, and doing your own research and that kind of thing. So I have here at the bottom some typical A posts. So the typical B post meeting the minimum requirements has 350 words, engages with one of the sources, provides adequate citation, and so on. And that's the minimum requirements. If you want an A post, that's something like 350 or more words, deep engagement with the material, drawing connections across sources or even across lessons. This is the kind of things I'm looking at for A requirements. Just showing that you've engaged more deeply with the material and not just you're just trying to meet the minimum requirements for a grade. I understand that a lot of people take this class because it's a requirement, and I don't want it to be inaccessible for those students also. If you just want to pass the class, you can pass the class pretty easily. If you want to do well in the class, if you want to get an A in the class, you're going to have to do a little bit more. And the syllabus goes into the detail about that.
Like, but what about when you're done with the 450 plus words, you need all the citation at the bottom, right? Do you need an MLA or APA?
APA. Good. So yeah. So let me go ahead and talk about that really quickly. So citation format. Let me put up the syllabus. So in the syllabus, I have citations, and my rule is as follows: if the source that you're referring to is one of the sources that I've listed in the lecture as one of the available materials for that lecture, then you don't need to give a full citation. I know what you're referring to, and you can just give like an author, a parenthetical author reference, like this. So if you're talking about the Turing article, Turing says this, you just give a page number, and that's enough. If you're pulling in any sources that I haven't given for the class, right? If you're doing independent research, then you need to do full APA-style citations. And this will become important for 2 special lessons. So every week is the same. It's just the post, replies, and the quiz, except for lessons 10 and 11. I'm trying to find the research project. Yeah. So in lessons 10 and 11, you'll have a research project. And in the research project, you're supposed to find a case to study and do your own independent research. This will require maybe some library research. You can probably do it online, but library research also helps. And this will require full APA citations. Your post length and so on is going to be the same, but it just has to be on this specific topic. So weeks 10 and 11 are the only weeks where you can't write on whatever you want, and you have a more specific project. I'll go over that project in more detail when it comes around. It's worth 20% of your grade, so it's not insignificant. But it's pretty straightforward, and you do need APA citations there. One more hint for the people that are watching. This research project is a honeypot for cheaters. Every semester that I've taught this, that research project catches 4 or 5 kids per class plagiarizing. So please make sure you don't plagiarize, especially in that assignment, because I will catch you and you will fail. I have a strong plagiarism section in the syllabus to go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. As far as grading, please read the syllabus. It's like 12 pages long, which is a lot, but all the details about how the course works is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, that'll be it for me today.
All right. Yeah, and feel free to come in or leave as your time permits.
Mm-hmm.
My plan now is to talk just a little bit introducing the course. I'll probably speak for another 10 minutes or so, and then that'll be it.
All right.
Let me just make sure about comments. Also, if anyone on video chat sees a question left in the chat or in the comment section or whatever, please alert me, because I'm not always paying attention.
All right.
Does it matter which one? Because it's this.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Close what you have the group chat.
Before anybody leaves, has anybody found the PDF online? Because I know we have it in the library, so I was thinking about going there.
No, not really. But the books are $20 on. But the books are $20 on Amazon if you rent it.
Yeah, but I don't want to rent it. If I'm gonna get the book, I might as well buy it, and then.
That's true.
$20 for fleeting knowledge, or $80 for something permanent.
That's true.
If you guys do find a PDF of it, I would really appreciate a copy.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I found 2 everywhere. 2 is just splatter across the internet.
Yeah. They made a bunch of changes between the editions, though, so it doesn't work for us.
My favorite is when all they do is switch the problem numbers, so that way they're completely incompatible across classes.
Yeah,
Sure.
you gotta have some way to make money.
Yeah, it's just I don't mind doing that for like $10, but $80 is.
Yeah, I know.
Alright. I'm just gonna wait here.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so let me go ahead and do the course introduction. So this is engineering ethics. Traditionally, engineering ethics is a disasters 101 class where we learn about major, terrible disasters that cost life and lots of money, huge environmental disasters and so on. And we look at what went wrong, how do we prevent these things from going wrong in the future, and how can we spot them, right, when they happen? How do you know what to do? So that's a lot of what we're going to do. We have a couple of major case studies. We do the Challenger explosion, the Pinto's case. I don't know if you know the Pinto from the 70s, a vehicle that would explode when you hit it from behind. The Deepwater Horizon case is one of my favorite cases to cover, and we'll go over that in quite a bit of detail. And then you're going to be picking your own case from the history of engineering disasters to talk about. And I have lots of resources for you to find other disasters like this. And I'm sure you can think of a bunch off the top of your head. So looking at disasters is fun, but it's not just what went wrong. Well, let me step back one more step. It's often the case when you get a job, a new job, in some states at least, that there's an ethics component to the hiring process where you have to take like a state ethics exam or some other kind of ethics requirements mandated either by the state or the government or maybe just that company. But there's usually some ethical procedures. Nowadays it's pretty common. So this class is not supposed to prepare you to take those introduction orientation courses. Whatever job you get, you'll get plenty of orientation in that job about the local laws and ethical guidelines that constrain your profession. Not everyone in this class is an engineer, so we can't generalize too much about what kinds of jobs you're going to get. I don't know where you're going to be working, and I don't know all the legal stuff. I'm not a lawyer, so the purpose of this class is not to prepare you for whatever legal standards you're going to encounter in the future. Those orientation classes can sometimes get tedious, and it's one of my big desires to not let this class become tedious in the same way. So another thing that this class isn't is that this class is not designed to teach you about the difference between right and wrong. I assume that you're all adults and you have a well-developed sense of what's right and what's wrong, and you care about the difference between the two, and that you're interested in doing the right thing and not the wrong thing. I assume this of all people. That's how society is supposed to function, that people have a general sense of the difference between right and wrong. So my point here isn't to moralize at you or to finger wag or to get you to do the right thing. The point of this class is really that thinking about complex ethical situations, it takes time and it's hard. And in a classroom environment like this, you have the time, the luxury, the privilege of spending time thinking about abstract philosophical issues. You're probably never going to get the time and opportunity to think about philosophy in any dedicated way, again, in your lives. So hopefully you take advantage of it while you have it here. Hopefully by thinking about these cases in the comfort of a classroom will allow us to understand in an abstract way what went wrong and how to deal with it when you face similar conditions, circumstances in your own careers. Because in your career, when you face these circumstances, there might not be time at that moment to think abstractly about the difference between right and wrong. Usually when there's some crisis, you have to act immediately. And so it'll help a lot to have thought about it carefully here while we have the time so that you're more prepared later on when you actually face these scenarios. Yeah, and everything else is just going to come from the experience, and hopefully we can learn from the experience of history and see some of these major disasters and what went wrong. Sometimes this class can seem a little bit out of date, especially as we're going through the Pinto example. All the Pinto stuff takes place in the 70s, and so it seems a little out of date. But there's the VW scandal happening right now. It's in the news all the time. There's that huge methane leak in California. There's the fires in Indonesia causing all sorts of environmental destruction. Right? These kinds of events. Deepwater Horizon was 2010, just a few years ago. These kinds of events are in the news all the time, and they're not only relevant for your future careers as professional engineers, but for your status as citizens in society, to understand what role engineers play in that society and how they help us, or what power they have to hurt us as well. And hopefully we can talk about all this stuff in this class in a way that's productive. Okay, I'm happy with that introduction. The first.
We only got 3 people in the chat right now.
Oh, there's stuff going on.
No, not really. Who just reminded us to do student attendance at the end?
Yeah. Make sure you sign in on the lecture. Let me show you lecture 1 really quickly. So with lecture 1 and with the first few lectures, we're really just trying to get our feet wet in thinking about ethics and its relationship to engineering, and how ethics and engineering and value systems interact. And so I have a bunch of different examples for you to think about this. Herbert Hoover has this great quote about the great liability of the engineer. Someone's loud. Okay, yeah. There's this, the great liability of the engineer. Let me pull up this quote and just read it briefly. Engineer. Yeah. So this is Herbert Hoover, President Hoover talking about engineering. He says it's a great profession, but he says the great liability of the engineer compared to men of other professions is that his works are out in the open where all can see them. His acts, step by step, are in hard substance. He cannot bury his mistakes in the grave like doctors. He cannot argue them into thin air or blame the judge like the lawyers. He cannot, like the architects, cover his failures with trees and vines. He cannot, like the politicians, screen his shortcomings by blaming his opponents and hope that people will forget. The engineer simply cannot deny he did it. If his works do not work, he is damned. Right, this is, Hoover's talking about the great liability of the engineer. That the engineers have a special responsibility because of the kinds of work they do and how it is out in the open in the public. And if it fails, everyone knows it fails, and everyone knows it's the engineer's fault. That the engineer has a special responsibility that isn't held by other professions. A special moral responsibility. Now, you might agree or disagree with this, but this is the kind of thing that I want you to talk about in this first lesson. I have some other resources, different ways of looking at engineering. different examples of engineering in context. I think I'm going to end it there and let you guys get to work. Any last thoughts or questions?
That looks like an interesting class.
All right. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Have a good one.